Hi, everybody. Really good to be with you. I met a guy the other day whose father was a mailman in Modesto, California. And nearly every day he would deliver science fiction magazines and comic books to this one house. And there was a young guy living in the house. He had just graduated from high school, and this kid would devour these magazines. But his mother was not pleased as punch. She wanted to get out of the house and get a job. And she said to the mailman, he's like a little boy still living at home. Well, that little boy grew up to be George Lucas, the founder of the amazing Star Wars empire, became a billionaire, and he uplifted lots of people around the world through his science fiction. So that science fiction episode was not an escape from life for him. He was actually diving into his destiny. He was planting the seeds that would later sprout and form a magnificent career that altered his life and many others. His mother just saw the little picture, but his spirit was still very in touch with his big picture. Around the same time, there was a young Hawaiian guy, an overweight high school student, who used to sit outside the school building, cut classes, and play his ukulele and sing. And his teachers and parents were all over him to go to class, get an education, you get a good job, you have a career. He didn't listen. He just pursued his music. Well, he turned out to be Israel Kamakawiwoʻole, known as Iz, and I'm sure you're aware of his beautiful rendition of Over the Rainbow, which has become a multi-million seller and been used in many, many movies. And he is a beloved Hawaiian musician. He passed away, but he was probably the best known and most beloved of all the musicians to come out of Hawaii. So was his cutting classes a problem, or was he investing in a greater career than school could have prepared him for? You see, we look through very narrow vision, but meanwhile, there's a bigger picture that's happening behind the scenes. And finally, there was a woman about a decade later who got a job in London for Amnesty International as a researcher. And she was there for about 2 years, and she was fired because she was using the office computer to do personal writing during office hours. Well, her name is J.K. Rowling. And when she finally got fired, she decided, well, throw myself full time into writing. And that's when the Harry Potter series started. And now she's the first and only writer to become a billionaire through writing. And she's also richer than the King of England. So her working in that office was not a fit for that greater destiny. You may have criticized her for not being a good researcher, but she was actually developing a career that went far beyond Amnesty International. It's a good organization, but it wasn't for her. So while we're on the subject, I always like to tell you about the current stuff I'm doing. This week, June 2 to 5, I am participating with my dear friend Ken Honda, a prosperity genius who has organized a summit on what he calls happy wealth. And my lecture is on Monday, June 2nd, but it will be available on recording after that. And the entire summit goes to June 5th. So you can watch all of it for free. And you can also buy a package of the recordings if you want to watch later. So go to my website, alancohen.com. It's a fantastic conversation I had with Ken that was recorded, and all the speakers are great. So go to my website, alancohen.com, and there's a link. And so I often wonder, what if somebody I know now who seems like a normal person is destined for greatness? And I wonder if I was a student at Punahou High School, private school in Oahu, Hawaii, during the late, let's say, 70s or 80s, and I was playing basketball with a tall, skinny black kid called Barry. And I would have no idea that he would go on to become the first African American president of the United States. You just don't know what's brewing in somebody. Now, the main point here is that not only are the people around you perhaps destined for greatness, but you are. Now, you don't have to be a president or a rock star or a great author, but there's something brewing inside you that wants to come forth. In the Gospel of Thomas, one of the hidden Gospels about Jesus, he said, if you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, it will kill you. What this means is that Spirit has planted visions and seeds and ideas in you that you are to express in the world in your own unique way. You might be a writer, a teacher, a massage therapist, an energy worker, a healer, a business leader. There's millions of venues. And you have what the Course in Miracles calls a special function, which means that there are things only you can do in your own unique way, like a unique snowflake, that no one else on the planet can or will ever replicate. And the game of life is to tune in on your function and do it. Now, the second part of that phrase, if you don't do it, it'll kill you. It means that when you repress or suppress what your joy wants to express, you become stifled and you become depressed or sick. And we get stuck when we don't live who we are. There's a famous Sufi parable about a poet who went to a doctor and he had all kinds of itches and headaches and aches and pains. And the doctor asked him, have you recited your latest poem yet? And he said, no, I haven't. The doctor said, well, would you please recite for me? And he did. The doctor said, how do you feel now? He said, a lot better. Recite another poem, a lot better. And he went through this healing process by allowing the chemistry of joy, the chemistry of passion exude from him. And in that process, he was healed. And a lot of New Age and metaphysical teachers say that all diseases are related to stress, and all stress is related to some kind of suppression of lack of self-expression. In fact, if you're depressed, the cure for depression is expression. And you'll notice that in both of those words there's a pressing. So when you're depressed, you're pressing in on yourself. You're pushing against what wants to come forth. When you're expressing, you're allowing what's inside pressing out. And so when people tell me I'm depressed, I ask them, have you been expressing yourself? And usually they haven't. Either they haven't been expressing their talent, or they have a communication they're not expressed, or a relationship they need to clean up. And so it's impossible to be depressed and expressed at the same time. My friend Jerry Jampolsky, a wonderful Course in Miracles author, said that he used to get depressed, but then when he did, he would go out and volunteer somewhere. Because when the energy started moving outward, it stopped imploding. And so you can't be serving and helping and healing and depressed at the same time. It's impossible. There are two different frequencies, depression and self-involvement and worry and fear and guilt and anger. All those are, you're pushing against yourself. When you let it out, then miracles happen. Things happen around you. I used to, just out of college, I needed some money. So I got a job working in a shelter for what was then called retarded people. And my division was severely and profoundly retarded. That was the classification in those days. And it was a sheltered workshop. And I just did it for the money. I wasn't particularly interested in the work, but I found being there quite depressing. These people had IQs of a child under two, and some of them just sat and drooled or banged on a table or, said nonsense syllables. I eventually decided to love them and we had a great time together. But there was a time period when I was getting sick. I did not want to go to work every day. I found all kinds of ways to get out of work, and I did not want to be there. And I actually got sick, but I needed to stay in the job for 60 days to get the medical benefits to help me with the disease I got from being there. It's kind of a vicious cycle, isn't it? And what I really wanted to do was to write and to do music and to teach yoga. And so finally, I went to the supervisor. I said, look, I'm grateful for this job, but there are other things I want to do. So I gave her notice and I left. And that's when my career took off. That's when I started writing and teaching yoga and playing music. And the moment I left, I felt better, I need to tell you. And so I had to be true to where my passion was. I had to trust that what brought me joy was my right path. Now, a lot of us have it backwards. We think, well, the more I'm suffering, the more I'm doing God's will. Or the more I'm sacrificing, the closer I am to heaven. It doesn't work that way. If you can just hook up the fact that your right path in life is deeply connected to where your most aliveness lives, then you got something going for you. Well, P.S., that organization hired a guy to replace me who was so much better with those clients. He loved being there. He showed up every day. He was a great. I was stealing that guy's job from him by being in my wrong place. But when I went to my right place, I opened the door for him to be in his right place. So we're always being guided, and guidance equals joy, and guidance equals non-joy by recognizing this can't be it. Every opportunity, every decision in life is either this is it or it's not it. And it is that which brings me greater aliveness, and not it is that which deadens me or numbs me. And then we go on, as Thoreau explained, to live what he called lives of quiet desperation. So if you want to have fun with this, take a piece of paper and make two columns. And the left column, put a plus or the word enliven, and the right column, put a minus or deaden. That's the title of both of those categories. And then make a list of all the things you do in the course of a day or a week or a month that bring you life. I love to walk in nature. I love to do yoga. I love to go out with friends to dinner. I love to study A Course in Miracles. I love to go to spiritual classes. I love to dance. I love to watch funny movies. And that's your list of enlivenment. And then you look at your list of endeadenment, so to speak. Well, sitting in front of a computer screen for many hours a day, worrying about or arguing over politics, watching movies that are downers and violent, make you list, working on spreadsheets, hanging out with people who are gossipers and negatives. And you'll notice that there's a very clear pattern of what brings you life and a very clear pattern of what drains the life out of your bucket, so to speak, through holes in your bucket. So now your game becomes, and it's the funnest game in town, is to maximize the list of what brings you life and to minimize or get rid of the list that doesn't bring you life. And a lot of people come to me and say, well, I've had these old friends and I used to have a lot of fun with them, but I've changed. And I've gone to yoga, I've gone to meditation, I do A Course in Miracles, I have spiritual studies, and I don't really click with them anymore, but I feel guilty. They invite me to do stuff and I feel guilty. And I tell them, everything is frequency and everything is Velcro, frequency Velcro. So when you were a match to these people, so it felt good and it was enlivening for you, but you have grown, you've taken a different direction, not better or worse, just a different direction. And so you have to be true to where your greatest life force lives. There are other people who would like to hang around with them that match them. And there are other people who'd like to hang out with you that match you. And if you can be really honest and sincere about what makes your heart sing, then you're going to be in your right place with the right people. Now, if you can sit each morning before you start your day, and as A Course in Miracles suggests, ask Spirit, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? And what would you have me say and to whom? And say, I now open myself to the highest day I could possibly enjoy. And I like to envision rolling out a golden carpet. And then I say, okay, everything that matches my good will show up as I stay in my golden path. And everything that does not match my good will not show up. In fact, I will be invisible to everything not good for me, and it will be invisible to me. And it's a great prayer. And when I say that prayer, I have wonderful days. And miracles happen, and the right people show up, and the right ideas show up, and new books come forth, and new programs come forth, and lots of people sign up for my programs. And it's like when I'm committed to my own golden carpet, and I stay on that rather than try to tread someone else's, then lots of good things happen. So every day there's a new golden carpet for you if you're willing to watch it. Now, last point is that when you start judging against yourself, that's where you get messed up. That's when you get off the carpet because judgment is the opposite of joy. So when you start thinking, well, I should be I should be leaving the house. I'm 18 years old and I watch too much science fiction. Well, guess what? If George Lucas had said that, we wouldn't have had all the wonderful Star Wars movies. And you can't judge somebody else's path either. His George Lucas's mother could not figure out what the heck he was doing with his life. It wasn't in her field of vision to understand it. So I was teaching a retreat one year, and it was just before bedtime. And I was sitting in the lobby, and there was this lady, one of our students, who was reading Emergency Magazine, True Stories of Ambulance Calls. I said to her, Josephine, how could you read stuff like this before you go to bed at night at a spiritual retreat? Wouldn't you like to step back from the world? She said, no, no. She said, I work on the rescue squad, and this gives me some really good ideas. This is enlivening to me. So from my ego judgment, that's dark stuff. But from her spirit's judgment, that's light stuff. So never assume that you can know or dictate someone else's joy path, because if they're on their path, they're on their path. Never allow someone else's dark judgments of your joy path to stifle or crimp you from living your path. If George Lucas had listened to his mother, the world would be a poorer place. And if Israel Kamakawiwoʻole had listened to his teachers, we would have missed his music. If J.K. Rowling had stayed in that job and stifled herself from writing Harry Potter, wow, we would have missed all those wonderful books and movies. So bottom line is you have a right path in life, and you may be on it more than you know. Even in spite of your judgments or the judgments of others, you may be planting seeds of greatness and fabulous success that you will see only when you cultivate them. But you have to be trusting and loving and accepting of yourself enough to cultivate them. Okay, well, it's a pretty good message today. I enjoyed. I I get off on talking about what turns me on, and so hopefully, when I'm turned on, what I'm talking about, then you get turned on by listening, and even more important, you get turned on to what you love to talk about in your life. Okay, I guess that's it for today. Thanks for showing up, and we'll see you again soon.